All right, Chris, we've got a Saturday night's main event lineup taking shape with a 3-hour SmackDown with a lot of ramifications in terms of the match outcomes. And I thought it was, this second week of their return to the 3-hour format, and I thought that a they did a good job of making the 3 hours kind of breeze by. I don't think anything overstayed its welcome. It didn't feel like things were stretched out, other than maybe the opening 10 minutes got a little bit long. But a little bit, it felt like they were taking their time because they had 3 hours, is I guess a way to put it. I don't know if it took too long, but little things in between padding wise. But the big news is just we know who the four are who are going to be facing off to earn a shot at Drew McIntyre at the Royal Rumble. That is Randy Orton, Trick Williams, Damian Priest, and Sami Zayn, all advancing tonight. Chris, your thoughts on those four? Are there any surprises there? And what'd you think of the journey they took to whittle it down to those four?
No, I don't think there was any surprise there when you looked at the brackets of who they were facing, who would win. I think it was a pretty good show from that standpoint. I don't know if it's the shows are simpler to do in the UK, in Europe, just because they can't have some of the bells and whistles. They just have to get right to it. They can't have extra people around, but it was pretty. I mean, I still think 3-hour shows are too long, but for a 3-hour show, it wasn't as bad as some other ones.
Yeah, and I think that's fair to say. I mean, it isn't just a binary. There's no way a show can be good if it's 3 hours. 3 hours is too long. And if it's a good 3-hour show, it doesn't mean it should be 3 hours every week. And it doesn't mean if they can manage to put together 2 good 3-hour shows 2 weeks in a row that they can sustain this. Let's circle back in weeks 8 and 18 and 28 and 38 to see if they're able to, have the show. At the very least, have a review like this right after the show, not have us leading with a sense that it was just filler and it dragged. And this did not feel that way. They have some good wrestlers having good matches, including a really nice U.S. title open challenge. So the bright side of an inherent negative of a needlessly long 3-hour wrestling show is I think they pulled off a good version of it tonight.
Yeah, and I think the only way that happens, and I'm start annoying that all wrestling promotions do this, is that they don't have title matches. They have tournaments or some other thing to create a number one contender. But on a show like this, that gave you 4 matches of quality with important stakes, and that's a good portion of the show when you have that, whether it be promos around the matches, things happening after the matches. You have 4 matches that aren't just throwaway. Yep. That makes it 3 hours go a little faster.
Let's focus on one match here in Block A, and that is Trick Williams and Matt Cardona. Trick got some cheers from the crowd. He played into them a little bit. Oddly, WWE cuts to fans who are cheering heels, which I just don't think is a great idea. Why lean into it, especially when you're going to do an angle later where, he ends the show clearly, going after Sami and making it clear it's clear he's a heel, but like reinforcing that. So sometimes I question their directing choices of, hey, fan engagement is good no matter what. But in the end, all's well that ends well. They're reinforcing he's a heel and putting a little heat behind him and Sami. They also have announced the Priest and Priest and Trick for next week too, 1-on-1. So yeah, just kind of give me your thoughts on what they were doing with Trick tonight.
I think the problem with Trick Williams is he seems cool. And
it's such a problem to have.
I mean, it's not a problem in life probably for him, but as a heel wrestling character, I mean, kind of. I remember when they turned him heel initially in NXT, I was kind of like, well, why would you turn him heel? Like, everyone likes him, and the sort of cocky, arrogant guy who backs it up, fans start to like. I mean, I remember, not to compare him to this, but that's what I remember seeing when I was in high school with The Rock. It was like, oh, The Rock's arrogant, but he's cool and he wins a lot. And I think because Trick has a really great personality, he's a really good talker. That was his strength even before the in-ring improved. I think it's going to be hard to keep him as a heel, but I always say my rule in wrestling, when you have a heel and you want to keep him a heel, is have him wrestle baby faces or do things that are blatantly heelish, whether it be attacking Sami Zayn at the end because, Sami Zayn is the babyface, or having someone like Damian Priest, who's a babyface, kind of stand up to him and say, you talk a lot and I'm not here to talk. I'll see you in the ring. It kind of makes Trick seem like a heel, but they have to keep doing things like that because I feel he could be a babyface by the summer.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, he's cool. He's got a catchy entrance too. In the chat, Goodfella says, Kit and Trick to me show how important catchy entrance music adds to overall presentation. It does, but it can also tilt the fans towards cheering for you or doing the sing-alongs and the chants. And I don't know if it's by design that they don't care or they think it doesn't matter as much as it matters to have fans chanting for someone. But it's like Seth is a big example. You go heel, but you have a song everyone sings to.
Yeah.
At some point, the communal experience of chanting and singing along to wrestlers is not worth it. It's not worth keeping it with the heels. That's where you change the music. Shinsuke changed his music when he went heel. There's a way to change up the rhythm of a song to stop fans from chanting it, and it just doesn't seem like enough of a priority in the Paul Levesque era. I mean, maybe even predating that, but it seems like there's almost a disregard for that. And you do want you want to give fans a reason to genuinely be rooting for or against someone. And if they're having fun chanting and singing catchphrases and dancing to their music and cheering them, it runs counter to that effort.
Yeah, I think part of the problem is with wrestling is you have wrestlers that don't get good reactions. So then part of it is like, oh, well, so-and-so's getting a reaction. That's better than getting no reaction. But what reaction are they getting for the character that they have? So I think with Trick, you have to keep him against different types of very established baby faces, no tweeners. Don't put him up against The Miz or something like that, or someone the crowd is not behind.
Yeah.
That really, I mean, I saw his, I was at Slammiversary when he came out with the orchestra, and that was such a baby face presentation as well with the choir singing his song. So it is very easy to lean into that. They have that opportunity probably down the line. They'll probably get to that at some point, but that's not what he's doing right now, and they should just make it very clear that he's a heel.
Yeah, I mean, if he's going to do everything you can to get that heel reaction, save up. You can encourage fans once he turns babyface, or even on the verge of turning babyface, you can even pull back a little bit from trying to avoid situations where they get cheered. But it's just not fair for the babyfaces to have the machinery around a heel not overtly try to extract them from situations where they're going to get cheered and fans are going to seem to be on their side. A lot of people in the chat commenting on Trick, so let's throw a couple of them up and react here. T. Chanzo Sports says they are building Trick up to be a main event player. Goodfella said, I already covered that. Here we are. Mr. Freshman said, Trick Williams is the future, not Braun Breaker, like others are forcing us to believe. Let's see. Darrell Freeman says, Trick being a heel allows him to use his talk in a cool way, which makes him a cool heel, but I love how they are using him. Rosa 0025 says, Trick jumps off the screen every time. They haven't had a guy feel this much like an instant star in a while. And T. Chanzel Sports says, Trick reminds me of a young Booker T with his swagger. Goodfella adds, comparing Cardona's new song to Kit and Trick just seems like he's already a step behind if he wasn't already. T. Chanzo Sports says it feels like a cheat code to get a reaction. Mr. Freshman adds, Trick has always been cool from being a heel to a face to a heel. Doesn't matter. He just has it. Darrell says, I think, though, before we say who Trick really is, we've got to see how fans follow him. And can he get fans into the things he does in his matches and caring about if he wins or loses? Singing to a theme doesn't mean you are over. And I think that's smart. A smart observation. Paul Driver Pete says, Trick is cool. It comes through. And Sadler version 3 says, I think it depends on the wrestler. For newer guys like Trick and Kit, catchy music is a good start. Is good, so fans start to know who they are. For vets like Seth, they shouldn't rely on music and chants at this point. Darrell says, if they take away the chant along of Whoop That Trick and let fans bring it back to change him into a face, because that would mean they're doing it because they believe in him. So some interesting comments there. Anything jump out to you that you want to react to there, Chris?
Yeah, well, Kit Wilson's theme song sounds like something that my daughters would sing in the back of the car out of K-pop Demon Hunter. Well, K-pop Demon Hunters is very, very popular, so I get it. But again, we'll get to that later. It kind of led to an awkward moment in the ring because of his theme song. What happened to him?
Do you like Trick more than Braun right now as a future star?
I would say yes, because Trick has a personality that's Braun has not really established yet. Though I mean, Trick has more gift of the gab than Braun. It doesn't mean that Braun can't have an established personality.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that I feel like Trick has been doing a different version of his personality, even when he was a face and a heel for a long time. He even did it on Impact as well. So I feel like he has his act down more than Braun does.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's ahead of him in that regard. But I think Braun still has a bright future. And I think that WWE's in a good spot because they have multiple options to go looking forward.
I think I can imagine after what they've done with Trick so far and how Trick has come across to see a Trick versus Braun match. But it's sort of like going back to the 90s where they kept Shawn and Brett apart. And that was like their match for a while. And it was like, are they going to put it on Raw to go against Nitro? That's the card they can play. There's always sort of that. I like as a fan when there's that match that you can't have because wrestlers are in a different company, but it seems like a natural fit, or in the modern era on a different show, on a different brand. Trick and Braun has a chance a couple years from now to be that match if they keep them on separate shows. I don't know who the babyface or heel will, who will turn babyface by then, because I can see Braun being a babyface. I can see Trick being a babyface in their first matchup against each other. Seems like Trick would be more natural, but there's times where the fans really seem behind Braun too. But looking at what's happening with Trick right now, this is a good start for him, and it's a kind of a good start for SmackDown too. T. Changel Sports in the chat says, I think SmackDown has benefited from introducing new talent this year. Raw feels a bit stale with the Vision story, and Trick is part of it. How do you feel about that, Chris? Just kind of, does SmackDown seem fresher right now?
Oh, definitely. Between Trick, Jordan Grace, you have videos for Obafemi. Even people like Dragunov and Carmelo Hayes are kind of new-ish.
Kit Wilson repackaged and Matt Cardona repackaged, or Brat Bach. There's some new faces too.
New people.
Yeah.
Even to a lesser extent, Jacob Fatu was gone for a while, so him even coming back is a different element. And yeah, I think that's really, really, really helpful. I think that they've needed, since they've gotten rid of the draft, I think, or I know they've officially gotten rid of the draft, but they've basically gotten rid of the draft. They don't have this seismic shift of talent anymore. So they need to really bring people up probably on more often than they have done before. But bringing up a bunch of people to SmackDown really has changed the dynamic and given some fresh feuds and provided some new options for what they can do. So yeah, I like what they're doing so far.
Yeah. Sadler says, agree, SmackDown feels much fresher than Raw with these new additions and the new champ. Part of it is just they have 3 hours to fill, so they're like, we got to put all the new people on the 3-hour show. And SmackDown's actually kind of, maybe ironically, well, I don't know if ironically is quite the word, but they're benefiting from it. And so the 3-hour format that people dread actually is full enough of fresh talent to not feel like it's as much of a slog to get through. Pile Driver Pete says, I really enjoyed tonight's show. It did seem fresh. Goodfella adds, Oba, Sol Ruka waiting, maybe Jericho and Powerhouse Hobbs. Should be a fun year. I'm glad we have that kind of enthusiasm, because if we're watching this every Friday night, I'd rather be talking about exciting new talent growing and having competition for who's going to grow and be the next big star than lamenting, how thin the roster is and how much filler is going on. Very good. Let's pause and introduce ourselves formally here quickly, and then we'll get back to more topics on the show. A lot more to get into. This is the Wade Keller Pro Wrestling Post Show for Friday, January 16th, 2026. I'm Wade Keller, host of the show, editor, publisher, founder of the Pro Wrestling Torch weekly newsletter and the website PWTorch.com. I hope you're checking out PWTorch.com every day. Have a tab open on your phone and on your desktop or laptop. Some really good articles every day. Thoughtful, well-written articles with different points of view, fun formats, giving you different ways to look at what's happening, reviewing things, complimenting and critiquing what's going on throughout the week. Plus, compelling news stories, some fun flashbacks. We just put up 3 flashbacks from Impact 20 years ago. With Impact being back on the TNA Impact being back on the radar for a lot of people this week on AMC. It's kind of fun to look back on what was going on 20 years ago with that brand. We just put up a report on Christian Cage's TNA debut, his first ever appearance We're a little bit behind. We're a few weeks behind on the 20 years ago flashbacks, but it was Christian's debut, and then the following week, fans were chanting, "We want wrestling and boring" during a Jeff Jarrett promo, which was interrupted by Christian. So that was fun. And another 20 years ago flashback, AJ Styles losing to current WWE producer Petey Williams. Plus Jeff Hardy, Abyss, currently a producer behind the scenes in WWE, Samoa Joe, and more. Just it's a blast looking back at how many people who were part of TNA 20 years ago, where they are now, and also wondering where some of them went. So check that out. Lots of cool stuff on PWTorch. It's just a playground of articles and a wide array of formats, and of course our live TV and pay-per-view coverage too. PWTorch.com. Speaking of TNA Impact, by the way, yesterday I hosted a Wade Keller Pro Wrestling podcast live on YouTube on our PWTorch channel here on the TNA Impact return to AMC. A disappointing show, uneven, full of tropes, a lot of disappointment, poorly received in most circles, and we went into what specifically were the missteps, in my opinion, on that. And I don't know. Yeah, it was. And that show, if you're on the podcast side of things, is on the PWTorch Daily Cast feed. We didn't have room for it on the Red Show with our usual array of shows that were scheduled. So we had an opening this week on the Daily Cast feed, and so we put it up there. So search PWTorch on your podcast app if you haven't done so yet, or hit refresh on the PWTorch Daily Cast feed to get that show. We had great chat interaction, email, caller interaction throughout, and had a lot to talk about, including the big main event title match, Santana headlining as a challenger against Kaz on that show, and some surprises and some so-called celebrities who weren't, and much more. It was a newsworthy show, sometimes for the wrong reasons. Greg Parks, by the way, has his Parks Take up, his editorial reviewing TNA Impact from last night on PWTorch. Check that out. He said it was the same old TNA, unfortunately. And then JB had his Impact hits and misses. Darren Lilly had his usual weekly Impact full report along with his analysis. And then I also did live coverage with a detailed report with my analysis of the show. So unless I'm missing anything, at least 4 articles covering last night's show, along with a podcast at about an hour and a half, downloadable for everybody on the PWTorch livecast feed. Again, search PWTorch to subscribe to that for free, or go VIP and get that show without commercial breaks and all of our other shows, including the VIP exclusive shows and ad-free versions of our free shows. But we're here to talk SmackDown, and I've got Christopher Maitland with me to talk SmackDown from the PWTorch Daily Cast, Wrestling Coast to Coast weekly show. Chris, welcome. Thanks for hosting tonight.
Thanks for having me. I didn't watch TNA yet, though I heard bad reviews, so I'm going to have to check out some of that stuff as a Torch member over the weekend. Yeah.
It was a fun conversation. It's fun talking. I mean, it's been a while since I've done just a full-fledged long show dedicated to TNA. I am a little perplexed and befuddled at what they thought was the right thing to do with a presumably bigger audience than they've had in a long time on that show. It's unfortunate because, you'd like to see them do well out of the gate. And yeah, we're kind of shaking our head at some of those things. All right, let's shift back to talking about SmackDown. I encourage everybody to continue in the chat with us. If you're watching us live on our YouTube channel, search PWTorch or Wade Keller on YouTube to find our show, or find the link in my TV reports on that night's show. So as I'm covering SmackDown on Friday nights, you can find a link to the YouTube show right in my report. That's the fastest, easiest way to get to it. That also includes the caller code. If you want to call in and be on video, or you can turn the camera off and have it be audio only, you can join us for the post shows as a video caller or audio caller. And you can also email us, wadekellerpostshow@gmail.com. That's wadekellerpostshow@gmail.com. All right. We didn't talk too much about Matt Cardona. We've got sidetrack's the word, but we got focused on Trick Williams. What do you think of Matt Cardona's promo? Kind of trying to. It reminded me a little bit of R-Truth saying, "I'm not R-Truth, I'm Ron Killings." Like, you strip away the thing that made people kind of like you as a cult figure. Is there enough left over afterwards to be for fans to still be interested in him? I think there's something, if you're going to be in have a shot, which is what this was at the world title. He had a shot to get a shot to get a shot at the world title. You want to have a serious side to you. You don't want to seem like a goof or a clown and do your silly catchphrases and just look like you're living in the past. But I don't know with him. It's just a question. Is there enough otherwise with him to have him be worth TV time if you strip it down to who we saw tonight? If he's not spectacular in the ring and he's solid on the mic minus the gimmickry, is that better than just sort of being a nostalgia act at this point?
I think, well, first of all, I think he's probably so happy to be there. I think he'll do anything.
Of course, yeah.
We've covered Matt Cardona quite a bit on Wrestling Coast to Coast through his independent run, seen him in a lot of different places. But I think starting out, yeah, he has to be serious, because why would he come back? He has a goal he's trying to attain, and that he wants to be the champion. It actually worked the first couple of weeks because him and Cody have been, at least maybe outside of the show, where they've been established as friends. So it's like, hey, friend, I want a shot at the title. He's in this tournament, and he said, hey, I didn't come back here for any other reason. I came back for this title. He lost, so there's probably now and he was attacked by Kit Wilson. That's probably his off ramp to being distracted to something else while other people fight for the title. But I think he'll settle in pretty well. But I think the difference between him and R-Truth is that he's been gone for so long that he still has to maybe establish himself with some fans. R-Truth was gone for 2 or 3 weeks, which, in wrestling now isn't that big of a deal, so he could come back and slot in pretty quickly. But I see Matt Cardona just being someone in the middle of the show, probably in a month or so. But I think that for him at this point, that's probably fine.
Yeah. Yep. Some people in the chat, some of our listeners have comments. Cardona would be better off as a heel. That would be fresh for him. We have Goodfellas saying Cardona on the stick sounds great, chasing the dream of being champion. But he caught a double beatdown tonight. Can only hope to go up from there. Sadler Version 3 says, I think Cardona needs the refresh. R-Truth is essentially the team mascot, so him changing made less sense. Cardona seems more serious. And Pile Driver Pete says, I believe wrestling is better off evolving. It can be kind of sad when a wrestler clings on to something that's played out because it was the thing that got them over years earlier. Darrell says Cardona feels like he might have something he's not showing us, so I hope they keep letting him be serious. And finally, T. Chanzo Sports says, I think Cardona should be a heel, as Zack Ryder was known for being a babyface. So it feels more like a different character. What do you think of that? Could Cardona come in optimistic, bright-eyed, more serious, talking about doing, comparing himself to Cody? I left, he got cut, tried to reinvent himself, did, and now he's back with a new name. Is there potential, if he has some setbacks, that he would then go, well, heels are often heels because they can't win fair and square, and they'd rather take shortcuts or make up for their lack of ability to stand up to the top baby faces in a straight up match. That's a universal story you can tell with someone turning heel. Is they're late in their career, they don't have it anymore, so they take shortcuts. Is that a route to go? Or from what you've seen of Cardona outside of WWE, as he's been on this journey to kind of, outside of WWE, establish what else he can be, do you think, no, roll with this? It can be a word. I mean, it's not going to be main event, right? But can he be a second-tier guy who fans like? Can you just roll with that?
Well, some of the stuff he did on the indies, I don't think he could do on WWE. Some of the promos he cut. So there's that aspect to it. But no, I think, he has an opportunity to potentially change, because he can say, it's different than R-Truth, because Zack Ryder was kind of always a comedy figure, and Matt Cardona, when he was on the indies, was more serious, and now he's trying to be serious as Matt Cardona. I think that, I don't know, I just feel that at this point he's someone that should be in the middle, and that's okay. I think
as a babyface.
As a babyface, yes. As a babyface,
yeah.
I think someone that people like. Again, he's from Long Island, where I'm from, so I was a big fan of him for a long time. When he was one of the first people to do like videos on the internet that were separate from the wrestling show, which were like, oh wow, some of these people that you see on his show they have a different character than they show on TV. So that was actually pretty cool at the time. But I think, he should stay a babyface unless they make him and Chelsea Green, his real life wife, a duo. That might
What
be.
do you think about that, by the way?
I wouldn't mind them as like a heel couple,
Yeah.
sort of full of themselves. People love Chelsea, so they may have to work to get people to boo her. But I actually think that's not. I know she's been teaming with Ethan Page. That's been a good tag team. But maybe after that's gone, I wouldn't mind them being a team that just are kind of like jerks to people. I think that could work for him as a heel. But really, other than that, I think he should stay a babyface.
Obviously, getting into it with Kit Wilson suggests they put him in this in one of the qualifying matches because of the novelty of him being back. And I thought, I think it's good to have him cut a promo and paint a picture of what it'd be like if he won. You want to sell people on the idea that it's like it can happen because he believes in himself. But he didn't win, and then he gets into it with Kit. That suggests he's going to be a mid-card utility veteran babyface who will battle people like Kit Wilson, and there's no shame in that. I'm trying to extract a reason to think he should be more than that, and it's not just, well, could he do it? It's, is he the best choice to put in that spot compared to everybody else who's competing for a top-tier spot? And that's where it gets, even if you're a fan of his, it gets a little iffy for anybody when you make the case. It's not just are they qualified, it's are they better than the other choices that Paul Levesque has to put in that spot. And I just don't know that he has ever shown me that. Even, it don't mean I'm not a fan of his work. And like Pal River Pete says, the dude has ambition, and there's something to be said for that. And I think he's going to bring his heart and soul, and people are going to connect to him in that way or feel betrayed if he turns. But, it's fine. It's fine to be a utility guy, a bit of a gatekeeper, and have fans behind you. And I think that's probably the best role. Although being a heel, I think, could work, Chris. I think he could channel something. Yeah.
I think it could in the right circumstance. But I think if I were going to say which was a better option, I'd say babyface.
Yeah. Goodfella says, following Matt on the Indies, it feels like he will do everything he can to evolve and make the best of what he has and stay seen. Darrell says, also, he's not doing the goofy woo-woo-woo, so that's a good start. Now he needs to show these new people who don't know Cardona but might have heard of Zack Ryder. He's got to establish what he is. Like, Damian Sandow had a character in WWE. Then he went to TNA, and there wasn't a character, or it felt, derivative. Like, there's times you just strip away what you had in WWE, and there better be something underneath it. The Fandango thing, just talking about last night's show. Like, if you're going to take away kind of the gimmicky thing, you want to have something there that's compelling and interesting relative to your peers who are competing for TV time. And he's getting mic time. And he's worked that out on the Indies and earned his way back. So, seeing what his journey is this year, I think is going to be fun to watch. And, obviously hope for the best wherever he lands on the roster.
Yeah, the whole thing with the Indies, how he kind of got prominent was when he first went to GCW. He wrestled Nick Gage in a death match, and it was sort of the thought process of, here's this person who, him and Brian Myers were signed at a very young age. I think very beginning of developmental, and had been in the WWE system for such a long time, and there was sort of some part, maybe not necessarily, maybe a bit ridiculous, a stigma about a wrestler that was in the WWE system for so long that they wouldn't do certain things. They're out on the independents, and he went right out there and showed, nope, I'm going to wrestle a death match with Nick Gage. And that kind of gave him a new lease on life and a kind of different viewpoint. So as I can't remember who it was in the chat, he will do what it takes to appear different. Obviously not to that extreme in WWE, but he'll definitely do what it takes to do something different.
What you just said reminds me of when a child actor grows up and they're gone for a couple of years, and then they come back and they play something totally against that child character in their first movie, a criminal, or it's like has a lot of sexual edginess to it, or violence, or whatever. They just want to go, I'm more than what you remember. I don't, and sometimes, Gary Coleman wasn't going to be able to be anything but who he was, probably. Yeah. Like some child actors just can't, but others can break out from that. And, Leonardo DiCaprio is an example, and just like blow people away with what you can do in different roles. So, yeah, if you have a certain role at a certain point in your career and you don't want to become a nostalgia act, kind of just doing the same thing, you have to have something else that you can believably present that doesn't feel like you've stripped down to bare wood and there's nothing interesting, but it also doesn't feel unnatural and forced. And that's a challenge for a lot of people. So that's kind of part of the fun of watching a situation like this and what Matt does with the time he's given and how WWE presents him. Okay, so that was one of the matches. I don't think there's a ton to say, but we'll hit it. Solo Sikoa and Damian Priest. Just with everybody at ringside, you just figured people were going to get involved in this, and then you had the storyline ongoing between Solo and the MFTs and the Wyatt Six. So it made sense that Priest would move on, which he did, and Solo and his crew would peel off and go do something with the Wyatts. I did like one little touch where Joe Tessitore said early in the match, "It is hard to commentate with all the MFTs standing in front of me." And then they showed them, and then they did a callback. Just production-wise, I like this. Then late in the match, after the lights went out and came back on, it was the same scene. The MFTs were standing in that spot that they had already shown you, and Joe drew extra attention to it, even though they look at their monitors when they call the matches, not the ring, so it really didn't matter. But and then that's where the Wyatt Six were standing on the announce desk right behind them. I thought that was kind of a fun callback or clever setup production-wise. So this match was more about the angle with Solo and the Wyatts than it was the match itself. But they went 10 minutes. It's kind of what you'd expect out of these two. It's fine. I don't think they dogged it or anything. But it's not going to compete with like what we saw in the U.S. Title Open Challenge, which we'll get to in a moment. What'd you think of the match, and what'd you think about what they also did with the Wyatt Six and Solo and the Lantern?
I thought my only quibble with the match was I thought it was a bit ridiculous that Solo, on the verge of winning, went and got the Lantern. I was more focused on that after cutting a promo about how it's time to return the championship to the family. But, he had Priest down and he decided to go get the Lantern, which ended up leading to his demise. But it made sense because the Wyatt Six and the MFT are in a feud, and therefore there's really no purpose for Solo being in this match. So, and there's more for Priest is fighting Trick Williams, as we mentioned earlier, and there's more to go in that direction. So it made sense with what they did. You're muted.
I like what they did with the explaining what the Lantern meant. You might think it's a silly gimmick. I don't like objects of sentimentality being the centerpiece of a feud. But it is a trope or a booking tactic in pro wrestling to do it. If you're going to do it, make sure that you understand why it matters and try to have it matter in a way that's consistent with who the characters are and doesn't seem too schmaltzy or cheesy or mellow or maudlin. In this case, you have Bo Dallas saying that by Solo stealing it, they've inherited the weight of what the Lantern really means. He noted they never used it as a weapon. He said, "We carry it in the dark so the dark doesn't carry us." And taking it is more powerful and it's than its true purpose, and it'll come back to them like a moth to a flame, and they won't rest till it's home. Basically, you watch that vignette and you go, all right, there's a lot of backstory with the Wyatts going back to Bray. The Lantern prevents the dark from carrying them, so they carry it. I mean, you watch that and you think, all right, that means something to this group. That means something to Bo Dallas. It's not just a Lantern he's going to replace. There's symbolism of it. I thought if you're going to do it, they put some good framework around it to make it matter. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it's not like my favorite thing ever, but I thought it's a better version of it because you need to make it seem like you believe why it matters to the people who are chasing it. You can see Solo wanting it because it's symbolic of taking something from this group that they're rivals of. What do you think about that aspect of the build?
Yeah, I thought it was good. Again, I agree with you. I'm not a big fan of objects, people fighting over objects, but I did like the recognition and having the importance of the sentimentality of it to the Wyatts and why they need it. And also, Solo and the MFT, they're jerks, so they will take something away from someone just because they like it or they want it and can hold it over them. So, again, it's a feud that I think is probably nearing the end, is my guess. With the tag team title match, I'm hopeful that they bring some more tag teams up while they're doing those other teams, which I don't know if that'll happen, but I think for now, as a good placeholder feud on SmackDown for the last couple of weeks, I think it's been pretty good.
Mr. Freshman 92 says, "I'll be happy when the MFT Wyatt feud is over." Goodfella says, I really enjoy Solo. I think he's great. Carrying the lantern this week. He's not so serious. LOL. Yeah, I think Solo's got more in him than the guy who with his arms crossed in the background where you're kind of trying to read his face. There is something there. He's still, I don't know if he's found it entirely or he's still trying to find a balance, but he's not like a top guy. I'm not going to expect him to ever headline a WrestleMania, but there's something there that keeps him entertaining where you understand them kind of keeping him in the mix. So you kind of in that realm with him, Chris?
Yeah, I feel that they pushed him too soon to be sort of like a main eventer. I remember going to Smackdown, I guess it was in May of last year, one of John Cena's last appearances with my co-host, Western Coast to Coast, Justin and Dayton, and they had a shirt for SummerSlam, which was in the previous year in Cleveland, and the main event of that previous SummerSlam was Cody Rhodes versus Solo Sikoa. I was just like, and just seeing that shirt, it kind of caught me off guard. It's like, oh wow, he was in the main event of a major WWE premium live event in the last year. But I think the role that he's been playing now and the one he's been playing the last few months is a lot better for him, and there's a lot more he can grow. He can grow in using that. So I think it's just a better use of him than kind of the guy who's fighting for the world title.
Yeah, and it felt like a stretch. Fanblast says, I think he was most effective not talking with his arms crossed, honestly. I always make that case about Sting. He was always best when he wasn't cutting promos and was in the rafters because he has such an aura to him, but it gets kind of shattered once he starts talking.
Sting's career is so, well, for me, fascinating because people talk. Well, Sting just retired last year, but I was like, when I was a kid, he was like one of my favorite wrestlers. And then when I got a bit older and saw some of the criticism of him, I kind of got, but then also I was like, I loved him as a kid. So, and then a lot of that shifted over the last few years for various reasons, but
yeah. All right, so that was one of the qualifying matches. What do you think of the Sammy Dragunov match and the way that they told that story? Sammy winning in 13 minutes. I mean, I thought they made the most of that 13 minutes, Chris.
I thought they had a really good match. I mean, for me, mentally, it was like right before the match started, or maybe right before Sami Zayn was introduced, they put up the graphic that next week's in Montreal and Quebec, and they're trying to sell tickets. So that pretty much told me, even though I had a good clue who was going to win, it pretty much put into my mind. I think it was a good match, especially the fact that they wrestled maybe 4 months ago or so for the U.S. title in the Open Challenge when Dragunov won. So it was able to call back from that. It was the main event of the show. It was a good match. They had Trick came out at the end to progress or have a feud going into the 4-way on Saturday night's main event. So, but yeah, I thought it was really good and right finish, or the person I thought would win won that one. Yeah.
I mean, I'm on board for any Dragunov match right now. Real Legend says, real hard hitting. Ely always bleeds hard way when he wrestles. LOL. Yeah, I just thought they told a good story. I thought there was some good announcing. It felt like the stakes were high. They could have done more to make you think Dragunov, the pieces were in place for Dragunov to maybe win, not make it seem so easy and obvious, especially with Sammy and Drew crossing paths. I mean, there's a story of Sammy, what will happen to Sammy if he has yet another setback. So, but they didn't hit that too hard. This was more just, they're kind of foreshadowing Drew and Sammy have to wrestle given the amount of time they're talking about, the 11-0 record Drew has against Sammy and Sammy wanting him to win last week, even if he picked Cody to win. And he wanted Drew to win just because he wants to beat Drew to win the world title. So, I mean, yes, you go into that match tonight, the main event tonight, pretty much knowing what the finish is going to be, but you don't care as much as you might otherwise because it's going to be really good. Did a nice job with the near falls, but I think they cut it too close. I think it was Sammy who rolled in at 10 in the double countout scenario, and it kind of put the ref in a bad position because the crowd was counting along. So the ref wasn't able to be sneaky about slowing down 8, 9, 10 because the crowd's keeping a basic rhythm. I think Sammy should have jumped in the ring a little sooner. I mean, I don't think getting in at 10.2 seconds versus 9.8 is worth it. Just come in at 9.2, and then if it's 9.6, you're at least still beating the count. Don't leave it the chance that you're going to make the referee look awkward having to go 8, 9 to N. I'd rather not have that. So that might be my only critique of the match.
Hey, I have too many pet peeves in wrestling. But one of my pet peeves is everyone coming in at 9. It gets too close. Coming at 8, coming at 7.
Yep.
It's okay. It's a dramatic match, main event, big show, okay, but
it's like breaking up pins. It doesn't always have to be a close call that the ref's going to have to look like an idiot by stopping his or her count. When their hand should hit the mat because you're late making the save. Like, just do it in plenty of time. There's still drama to it. It's just, the downside is too much. Pile Driver Pete says, Chris, yes. Darrell says they're slowly building Sammy in, not trying to show their hand with him. Yep. Dragonov's just a pleasure to watch every week. I mean, every time that he wrestles, and his promos are so earnest, and he just is who he is, unabashedly. And it's fun to see that. Okay, so the fourth match was in the of the four opening match, qualifying matches that we haven't talked about yet. It was the opener on the show, Miz and Randy Orton. We had an opening promo, which we'll get to with Drew and Randy. We'll keep that separate, but that flowed into the Miz and Randy Orton. Orton won at about 6 minutes. Miz looked competitive, but ultimately Orton won clean with an RKO after kicking out of a skull-crushing finale. Anything stand out in that to you?
And again, another pet peeve, but Miz attacked Orton from behind before the match started. Though I guess they did say, and maybe they did this during the break, that Orton did verbally agree to start the match, even though he was hit with Miz's finisher. Again, another match where it was pretty clear who was going to win. So, but it didn't overstay its welcome, which is fine because the promo before was pretty long. So, it did what it needed to do.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about what happened right before that. We had Drew McIntyre's celebratory promo. I was irritated at first that he was playing so much into the sort of hometown, so to speak, reaction that he was getting when he came out. I don't think it worked for MJF when he got cheered in Long Island. I think that was sort of a point that his character got derailed. I think you should turn against your hometown, not have places where you get to cosplay being a babyface, but then expect everyone to go back to being a heel later. And I was fearing they were kind of going that way, the way Drew's kind of leaning into the crowd and celebrating with his belt and smiling and soaking up the cheers. But then it was also sort of the trope, the misdirection of Drew seeming like he liked the cheers and then going, but screw you. We saw it with MJF being a good sport to Bandito and congratulating him in a hard fight and then hitting him with the belt. And you can just probably every week there's an example or two. There might be other examples this week I'm not even thinking about. I think Impact imitated that at some point. So you can say it's a trope, but I was relieved that Drew went back, at least, even if you didn't like him, the cheers are going to be there. So, it wasn't like they manufactured them needlessly. They were trying to finesse their way into it. So he said, I want to say to each and every one of you, and you thought he was going to say thank you, and he goes, screw you. And then it was, I don't like the meta stuff, and I'm glad Cody's moved away from it, but I thought it worked here, where he goes, this isn't the bad guy wrestler bit. And he's like, where were you guys when I was fired? Where were you guys when it was Roman and the Bloodline screwing me over? There wasn't an uprising. Where were you guys were doing the stupid yeet stuff with Jey Uso? You were cheering CM Punk. Like, Drew should have an issue with the fans who are cheering him. Like, you cheer me, but you also cheer all the people who made my life miserable the last few years. So screw you. It felt believable to me, and his delivery, I thought, was good. And then telling them you should chant thank you, Drew. Of course, some fans did, but for the most part, I thought he effectively turned the crowd against them. And then that led into him ripping on Cody a bit. The vanilla QB1 era is over, and the dangerous, unpredictable Drew McIntyre era starts tonight. I don't know if he knew he was doing it, but dangerous, unpredictable Drew is dud. So the dud McIntyre era starts tonight. I don't think he'll be taking that on as the acronym. And then Randy Orton came out, and they just was basically building up the idea of believability that Orton would be not only winning his qualifying match tonight, but winning at Saturday's main event a week from tomorrow and being the opponent at the Rumble for Drew, which I still think is very much a possibility. I think, between Sammy and Drew, those are two. Well, we can get into that as a separate conversation, the pros and cons of each of the competitors in the main event winning. Drew, I think Damian Priest is the fourth most likely option, but I won't even rule him out. We'll get into that. But talk about what Drew's celebration promo and in the interaction with Orton.
Yeah, I agree with you entirely. I was very happy that he turned the crowd. I knew the crowd was going to cheer for him because I said he's the first British world champion. And I thought about, is that true? Like, yeah, I guess that is true. The only one that came to mind was, I know Davey Boy Smith had a few chances. We never actually won it. So I'm glad that he acknowledged that, but also kind of turned the crowd. It did fit in kind of the character that he's been playing for the last several years, of the person who always thinks he's right, whether he's doing good things or not. In his own mind, his actions are always justified.
Yeah.
And I think, to be another caveat of mine, and I will preface the remark by saying that I am the son of immigrants from England, and I've been there 10 times. I don't like shows from the UK because a lot of the crowd, no matter what promotion it is, the WWE kind of go into business for themselves, and they kind of focus on cheering for what they want to cheer for and not necessarily what the wrestlers' characters are.
Yep.
So in this case, this is kind of what they had to do, because he's going to come out as a conquering hero, even though he won the belt kind of on a technicality, even though Jacob Fatu he's going to be running from Jacob Fatu shortly. He has to turn the crowd because they're going to be on his side. So I thought what he did was pretty good. Was really, what he did went really well.
They took what they had, worked with it, finessed it into the ending that they wanted. Goodfellow in the chat says, I like the long drawn out entrance. The promo was great. He drew them in, and then piss off. LOL. Yeah. I thought they'd do the Brett Sean thing where Drew plays a face for tonight because they're in the UK, and it'd be hard for him to get boos. Yeah, I think he succeeded in turning a lot of the crowd against him. Darrell says Drew came out first with the big pop, and then he did turn the fans against him, but it still felt like the show wasn't built around him, and he wasn't the top star of the show. Interesting. Does Drew feel like a transition champion? Do you think the average mainstream middle 80% viewer, not the 10% super casual, I only watch every couple months, not the 10% who are watching a show like this or listening to a podcast like this, but the middle 60, 70, 80, do you think they're all looking at him as, well, he's not really the top centerpiece guy, he's just there as a bridge to get to somebody else? Or do you think he's come across and had a good 2025, that no matter what happens and what the plan is, that a lot of people buy him as, no, this is his belt, he's going to keep it?
I think part of the problem is one, he doesn't have a set opponent to feud with. He has to wait for this tournament to happen. So you have a bunch of people that can come out and say, yeah, I'll wrestle you for the title, but they have to actually prove it. So he doesn't have a straight line opponent for the title. And the person he's feuding with the most is Jacob Fatu, who's also feuding with somebody else, Cody Rhodes. Mm-hmm. So he doesn't have a direct person. And also, he ran from Jacob Fatu. So it also, again, he's a heel. I do understand that he's scared of Jacob Fatu, but it does kind of make him seem a bit different that he's not willing to fight.
Yeah. Yep. Another chat comment here. Tagar Laga says McIntyre's not trying to pull a prime NXT Bobby Roode, is he? Bobby Roode did that in his NXT debut. Bobby Roode and Team Canada did that when he betrayed James Storm. He did that, and also when he debuted in NXT. Welcome to the chat, Tagar, unless you're one of the regulars with a new name. Sadler Vision 3 says having Orton come out instead of Cody was a good call. If Cody confronted Drew in front of this crowd, he would have been heavily booed. Yeah, we'll get into Cody in a second. That Cody promo, there's a lot to talk about there too. His first promo after losing the title. But yeah, I think it was smart what they did. Plus, they want you thinking about what's coming up Saturday, what's coming up at the Rumble, and then wondering what's next for Cody. Drew did reveal in the promo he had a clause put in that there won't be an automatic rematch. And so that kind of takes the storyline inevitability of Cody getting a rematch out of play. It's a little forced, it's a little arbitrary. Like, well, how do you make that happen? Why did Cody agree to it? Why did Nick Aldis agree to it? But at least they did something to explain why Cody's going to have to earn it. I would have liked a better explanation for that than I slipped it in late. It doesn't feel super plausible to me, but I'm willing to give them a mulligan on it because I think ultimately you want to have it. It's better to have an explanation than none. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that they had to do. Obviously it helps out that it's the Royal Rumble time, so there's a very easy way for him to focus on getting another shot. Though also, again, the weird caveat is that Drew already has his next opponent lined up, so technically it may not even matter if he doesn't give Cody a shot because Cody could get a shot theoretically against someone if they beat Drew at Saturday night's main event. So I think they did the best that they could do for that. But it also makes you. But you do ask Cody. You know, the man wears a suit to the ring, but he doesn't look at his contract apparently.
Yeah, exactly. Real Legend says, by the way, they haven't done a rematch in years. LOL. I mean, when you have an outcome where Jacob Fatu is instrumental in the finish and it's a cage match where a guy falls to the floor to win, you know, a rematch seems more in order than a decisive, clean 1-2-3. And so I think people were just assuming there would be some fallout from that. Darrell says Drew feels transitional because in your mind you can't say nor see him as the main event of either night of this year's WrestleMania, no matter who he faces. There is that. I mean, that is kind of part of what makes you feel like a main eventer. Is there a match that Drew can have that justifies displacing what otherwise would be in that top man spot? And I don't know that I see it either. I mean, if Cody wins the Rumble and Drew retains against whoever wins the four-way at Center's main event, that's a match at WrestleMania. You know, I mean, a one-on-one rematch. I don't know how people are going to feel about that. How do you think they would? Does that seem, I mean, they're two big stars, and Cody winning the Rumble would earn him a match, and Drew retaining against whoever he retains against would make him seem like a legit champ. But then you got a few months to fill to get there, and that means Cody and Drew aren't going to be doing anything fresh with anyone else, at least not without the idea that it's not going to culminate at WrestleMania because Cody and Drew would.
I think that really it's going to sound like a pivot, but or a push, but any discussion of the WrestleMania main event, whether that's good, how good as a main event, that match is really looking at the whole card. Because, you know, with WrestleMania, there's a possibility they can throw people that we're not expecting or thinking of in matches that are not title matches that they may see as the main event, and therefore they can do different things in title match. You know, as an example, last year when Jey Uso won the Royal Rumble, they had to sort of like figure out creative ways for him and Gunther to feud. So, you know, they ended up having him help out Alpha Academy for a while, and then he had to get injured for a couple weeks to be off TV. Yep. So I think you have to really, it's really a struggle. And from that standpoint, I think because of the two of them feuded so much the back half of 2025 and the first month or so of 2026, it probably wouldn't make sense to go for them again at WrestleMania.
Couple suggestions in the chat we'll get to for Drew's opponent for WrestleMania. But first, Real Legend says Drew's explanation about the no rematch clause was that Cody was so mad he didn't read the contract. You think Nick Aldis would go, hey, Cody, Drew added something. I know you're mad, but you ought to know about this. Oh, or Cody should have a lawyer. If he's going to have expensive suits, he should have an expensive lawyer, Chris. Yeah. Let's see. Darrell says, well, we know Drew isn't wrestling at Saturday night's main event, but we are getting Cody against Fatu. What about, because Fatu cost Cody the title, what if, can Drew end up facing Fatu? Because Fatu and Drew have an issue. Drew's a heel. Fatu is a babyface, I guess. I mean, I shouldn't say I guess, but I mean, his actions are kind of mixed. He's sort of a lone wolf renegade, in for it himself type thing, but the crowd's cheering him. Could you see Jacob Fatu as a legit main event opponent for Drew by either winning the Rumble or Elimination Chamber or however they get there, and it becomes a match on night one? Maybe it's the opener or second to last, and there's a women's title match or a special attraction match that headlines. Can you do babyface Jacob Fatu against heel Drew McIntyre and give them a WrestleMania WWE title match?
I think you can. I think you can, just because they've had a feud. I don't think you could do that match cold necessarily, but they have a reason to interact. If Jacob Fatu won but I think he'd have to win the Rumble. I think that, I mean, that probably would lead to a better than winning the Chamber. But again, that kind of is what I'm speculating without knowing the whole picture of what else they're trying to do. Yeah.
Another suggestion in the chat was Goodfella saying Obafemi wins the Rumble, faces Drew in the night one main event. Trick Williams shows up. We're talking about him as a future star. There's different ways to introduce talent, but when you get a vignette week after week after week after week, that is a way of signaling to fans, this guy's a big deal. And they're doing that with Oba, and he is a big deal. Do you look at him as a guy who comes in and everyone's talking about, oh, it's Cody's night or it's Roman's chance or whoever, what other big names are in the Rumble, and then Oba wins, and you just have Oba beat Drew and crown him this sort of the latest next big thing? Is that a path that you think is at all worth considering?
I think so. I mean, I guess this is one thing. If this was Vince McMahon booking, Oba would eliminate 12 guys and get thrown out at the end of some controversial fashion.
Totally. Yep.
I don't know. I think that would be a great way to get him immediately in the main event scene. I don't know if WWE will do that, though. I think he's ready for that. I think that's a great way to make someone a star right out of the gate. Mm-hmm. Have him come in and win the Royal Rumble, not just be impressive in a losing effort. But I just don't see WWE with the amount of people that want to be in that main event spot. I don't think that they would cast them aside for someone who's pretty new, just coming out of NXT.
Yep. I mean, that is the issue with that. Sadler says they never push guys to WrestleMania main events that fast. Piledriver Pete said that would definitely make a statement. So I'm just putting out there, if we think Drew's a transitional champion, I think Oba, Jacob Fatu, maybe Sammy wins and holds it to WrestleMania, and Drew is his opponent. I mean, I think there's some plausible things if it turns out they have some very specific other things to cover all the names that you're kind of alluding to that need a big match at WrestleMania also. I'm not willing to write off Drew entirely as someone who won't be in the WWE title picture at WrestleMania, either trying to get the belt back from, say, a Sammy, or just defending against Oba, or they extend the Fatu feud somehow. So, I don't know. I wouldn't write it off entirely, I guess. Goodfella is on board with it, saying Oba versus Drew night 1, Rhea versus Io night 2. Let's live a little and stack the card. So, there we are. Tagar Laga says, hopefully Drew McIntyre's title reign leads to a face turn. Just remember, he suffered from killer cross effect when anyone comes in contact with cross changes. Interesting comment there. Tagar Laga also says, I feel if Drew McIntyre faces Obafemi, that's the trigger for a double turn. I don't know if you want to bring Obafemi in as a face and turn him heel as part of a double turn. You got to spend more time establishing who he is. Although you could make an argument, people just assumed one thing about him and he was something else. It wasn't really a turn as much as a reveal.
Yeah, I think that one, I guess it's one of the things too, how much do people lean into their NXT characters, or how much does WWE think that really use NXT as a way to explain wrestlers that are new? And, he's been a babyface there, so why would you shift him heel? Mm-hmm. He's a big dominant guy. He seems to, I think they should just stick with what works and down the line change him, but I don't think putting him in as a heel would work. I also don't think changing him in a few weeks would work unless he's part of some, and he has a manager who's recruiting him and gotten to his ear. Not Paul Heyman, obviously. Don't want to turn to the Don Callis family, but someone else who saw him and maybe promised, you could have an angle where they promised him something or they take care of him and he was a heel for a while, then he could turn when he realized that they were, misusing him.
Yeah. JC Scooby says, let's see Oba versus Brock, and Oba wins.
Yeah, I like to see that. I mean, yeah. Brock Lesnar's has been speculated that he's not going to be wrestling for much longer, so that would be a good person to translate that a win to.
Darrell says they presented Oba as a babyface on that Saturday Night's Main Event show where he wrestled Cody, so keep him that way. So we have that too. All right. Powder River Pete says, I say let Drew shine with the belt. He's a great heel. He's put in the work. He's committed. He's done all those things. I mean, you don't want to give somebody a title reign because they earn it. You want to give them a title reign because they're the better choice than all the other options of other people who work hard and earned it. Or even give it to someone who didn't work as hard and didn't earn it in your eyes, but is still better at this time to be world champion. Being a world champion shouldn't be something everyone who works hard gets. It should be, for the world title to really matter, you actually want people who fans perceive deserved a chance with a belt never getting it, more than this sort of feeling of inevitability that everybody who deserves it or borderline deserves it gets a run with it. The fewer people who are world champ, the more value there is in being it, even if it upsets some fans. That certain wrestlers never did get the chance to run with it.
Yeah, it's like you see or on the internet, so I'm like, oh, I can't believe Rick Rude never won the world title. I can't believe Mr. Perfect never won the world title. It's like, well, if you watch wrestling back then, you know why.
Yeah,
there's nothing against them.
Yep.
And they were obviously legendary wrestlers, but not everyone got the world title back then. Not everyone got a world title match.
No, exactly. Yeah, I mean, Rick Rude and Kurt Hennig got to be champs in other territories. Rick Rude got to be the world-class championship wrestling champion. Kurt Hennig was the AWA champion, but in the WWF, the timing isn't always right. Sadler Version 3 says, Drew feels transitional to me because of the way he won the title. If he won in a legit way, it'd feel like a long-term reign. There's something about hedging or not giving someone just a decisive win. The thing is they didn't want to have Cody lose clean unless that was an integral part of the story they were telling, but they decided they wanted to put Jacob Fatu into the mix. What do you think of what they're doing to Jacob Fatu, Chris? Like, what are they doing with him? Is it working? Having him interfere in a world title match because of a personal grudge, in my world, is a heelish move. You should get your frustrations outside the confines of what I think should be considered sacred by all babyface wrestlers, and frankly, almost every heel also, which is when there's a world title on the line, you back off. There's like sort of rules of engagement that you don't do that. That's not the way WWE treats it, and they'd rather book a storyline than protect the integrity of the notion that a world title match is sort of untouchable. And then you have him going against both a heel and a babyface aggressively, and that makes people have to kind of choose how they feel about him based on context. What do you read into what we saw through tonight's show with him?
My guess with him is they're trying to say that he's unpredictable because he came back from injury to attack Drew, but he attacked Cody because Cody got into his face. But it was kind of justifiably so because, you're interfering in my match where I'm trying to keep the title. And then you have him, and then part of it, Kit Wilson got cheered, so you have him attacking Kit Wilson, which made him a heel. The crowd actually booed when he popped up behind him, but then I think they actually cheered when he did his moonsault because his moonsault is cool.
Yep.
But I think they want him to be the sort of unpredictable, unstable person that he could be on your side, he could not be on your side, he could work with you, he could attack you. Any match he's in, you never know what he's going to do. You never know what side he's going to be on. I don't think that's really helpful for him long term, but in the short term, because there is the Royal Rumble coming up in a couple weeks, it's actually not bad, as it kind of establishes the fact that he's just someone who'll do whatever it takes and doesn't have really any allegiances or alliances.
Yeah, if they didn't put if there weren't so many instances where fans are like, oh wait, I have to recalibrate how I feel about. Like they did with the heel tag teams tonight, the women tag teams tonight, where it's like, oh wait, I was just booing them, but now am I on their side or am I on the side of these other women who I normally don't like? They do that, I think, too often to their peril, and it takes away that kind of consistent emotional investment in either seeing somebody succeed or fail. And they do it because they're just trying to wedge people on TV for 3-way and 4-way matches. Or it's some philosophical thing about misunderstanding what shades of gray actually means in the context of pro wrestling. So I don't know, but Jacob Fatu could be an exception that proves the rule in the sense that do it with him. Like, it makes sense for him to be the guy who just, his character, the foundation of his character is he's in it for himself. He's unpredictable. And that's when you do it, but you ought not do it otherwise. Let's see. Real Legend says, my thing is if Jacob thinks Drew injured him, why attack Cody? Where are we on that storyline? Will we ever get a resolution?
Yeah, I don't know if that'll come out. That might. I assume that will. I assume that they're going to bring that up eventually. They don't want to bring it up now because they're trying to wait a few weeks, as well as like Drew's the champion. But Jacob doesn't have an. I mean, as Kevin said before, Jacob's unpredictable and he doesn't have his answer, so he's going to assume it's Drew until evidence otherwise, and that's probably can help them either build a storyline between the two of them or create a storyline for Jacob for WrestleMania.
Yep. All right, let's talk about Cody's promo. I was curious his demeanor, what he would do to kind of pivot away from being champion. He came out looking a little more like he had a lot on his mind, Graves said he's disappointed and perhaps embarrassed because he so proudly held that title. It feels almost unnatural and uncomfortable to see him without the gold around his waist and that ear-to-ear grin. Crowd was singing Cody Rhodes, but he said it sounds a bit different, but that's okay. They started booing him a bit. He said, if anything, I had become a bit episodic. And this reminds me a little bit when Cody uses, quote, big words. Not that episodic's a big word, but like Jim Ross would often do that. And he'd get him a little bit wrong, or he'd misuse it. And he would just continue to do it, and no one would tell him. Or he'd mispronounce a word, and no one would tell him. And he was so good. Like, it's like, it doesn't matter. But Cody, anytime he kind of like uses a word that doesn't feel like it's a word he had used just in casual conversation in life, it comes across like he's trying a little bit too hard. And maybe there's another conventional way the word episodic is used, but I mean, I think he meant, repetitive and cliche. And I just don't think that the term episodic resonated. I don't think anybody in the world had ever said, I'm kind of turning on Cody on board with him because he's too episodic. Like, I don't think anybody ever said that. I think Cody just came up with it. So that was a downside of this. I mean, I don't think he used the word right. But the point underlying it was, yeah, I did. He talked about his entrance, what he did on the stage, and get to the ring, and what do you want to talk about? But then he kind of shifted and said, I lost sight of all the ways that he could lose the match. And he said there's, Michaels, Austin, and Hogan have something in common with him. They won 2 Royal Rumbles in a row. Only one did it a third time. He wants to be that person. And he said one of his superpowers is not thinking he can't win when it's a long shot and believing in himself. And so he, kind of just said, hey, I'm not going to sulk. I'm not going to feel sorry for myself. I got to regroup. It happens. And I'm going to officially announce myself as the first entrant in the Royal Rumble. And that was kind of the big news coming out of that promo. He also, though, talked about Jacob Fatu, said he's a thoroughbred, a young veteran in the industry, but he has to know what the word receipt means in this business. And he said that he has the biggest mistake he's ever handed out coming to him, and that he can drive his all-gas car to the ring and get it, or he can find him and he can beat the brakes off his ass. So then he threw down the mic. I thought Cody hit a crescendo nicely at the end. The crowd was all over the place, but I think he kind of won him back. The way he reacted to losing, it wasn't a sore loser. He wasn't a victim. He owned it. And he not only said, this is my way to come back, I'm going to enter the Rumble, but I'm also not forgetting about Jacob Fatu, who cost me the match. I want to get him in the ring. Jacob's a babyface. Cody's calling him out. That's risky when people are, unless it's intentional that they want fans to cheer Jacob against Cody because it's part of a Cody story arc of him turning, which is fine then. But if it's not, it's a little risky to have him calling out Fatu and setting up a match with him. So a lot going on in that promo. I think I hit 3, 4, 5 of the main beats. What stood out to you?
Yeah, I thought episodic was a poor choice of words there, actually. And I won't spoil it, but I didn't watch Impact last night because I was watching this show called Traitors with my wife, and there was someone who misused a word and who got called out for it. So
that word or a different word?
A different word. I don't want to
know
what it is. But someone used a word talking about someone else, and actually someone, after a while, someone actually called them out on it. So that was actually cool to see because people don't do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the first thing putting my older daughter to bed, she goes, well, how is he going to wrestle? He's wearing a suit. And I'm like, well, he's not going to wrestle now. He's going to change.
Mm-hmm.
He was asleep before when he came out with the tracksuit. I think he did a really good job. He went into sort of local tropes. He mentioned some local indie promotions, like what culture that he wrestled for. He mentioned that WrestleMania should happen in London, which people got happy for.
Yeah, a little Mick Foley cheap heat there. But you're talking about like his street cred, so to speak, of being in London and his history there is a smart move from Cody because fans go, wait, that's right, this guy's authentic and he's been here.
But I think he did a good job of bringing himself into a level of focus that, he lost the title. Drew said to start from the bottom. That's okay because the Royal Rumble's coming up and he's going to go in the Royal Rumble. But Jacob Fatu, he hasn't forgot about you. He even mentioned some matches he had with Jacob Fatu, a promotion that they wrestled in independent promotions. So he definitely tried to weave in his route, weave in the fact that he has a little bit of a history, Fatu, and that they would end up, they're having a match so that he's going to be focusing on him. And in a way, it makes sense because he can't go after Drew because he can't get a title match. He's going to be in the Royal Rumble to get that title match. That's a few weeks away. In the meantime, he's going to go after Fatu. So that made a lot of sense in how it all came together. I thought he did a good job, especially with the crowd starting off not being on his side.
Some chat comments on this very topic. Goodfella says, I like the Cody entrance. Cool. Hopefully the Rumble Stadium is built in time. Darrell says, this is, I want to say that for a little bit. Sadler says he attacked Cody, Jacob Fatu did, because Cody tried pulling him away from Drew, and Jacob is crazy. Yeah, I mean, fair enough. So the idea is Jacob still thinks Drew attacked him. We might never know, or we'll see. But Jacob flipped out because Cody tried to pull him away from Drew, going, what are you doing in this match? Kind of Cody taking the stand. This title match is sacred. I want to earn a win. Don't jump in here and start messing around. So certainly that is it. Jarrell says after Saturday night's main event, Cody versus Fatu should and would be over. I'll add to this, I guess. Jarrell said they need to build this Drew Fatu match to Mania because it doesn't need a title, and a longer feud could help both guys. So if Drew loses the title to Sammy or whomever, and isn't the champ, Drew and Fatu can be a WrestleMania match, right, Chris?
Yeah, I think so. I think it would actually make a very good WrestleMania match. I think for it to work the best, Fatu would cause Drew to lose the title. And maybe you could do something where Fatu's going to win the Royal Rumble and Drew prevents him from winning it. And so that they have a reason to wrestle each other. Again, it being focused on the Rumble, you have 8 weeks or so until Mania. So there's a lot of time. I think Mania is mid-April again this year. So you're talking about 2.5 months, but I think, they're not that far away from having a really good reason for them to wrestle. But if they don't want it to be for the title, they'll find a way to get it off Drew. And so they just wrestle each other without it.
Regarding Cody in the promo tonight, Sadler says Cody is very good at slyly flipping crowds that are trying to boo him. The quote, London deserves a WrestleMania line was clever for that. And CJ LaChapelle says a great Cody promo. Good to see you, CJ, in the chat tonight. Real Legend says Cody came out with a suit. Then when he came back out, he changed into a tracksuit. LOL. Goodfella says, I like the Cody entrance. Cool. Hopefully. Oh, we already covered that. All right. Here's what I want. Pile repeats said he turned that crowd around like a car salesman. And Darrell says, I like the Cody promo. He could have said he's being robotic, but I did like that he called himself out and he had a little more rough edge to his promo, which is better. And it also changed up the flow of the promo. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a fair. I mean, I know what he was going for when he said episodic. The issue is just it doesn't quite. I mean, I think we know what he meant. It just didn't quite work. Swole74 said every episode is the same, is what he was saying. Yeah, we know what he was saying. I don't think that's the conventional way the term episodic is used. So I think it just, I will humbly stand corrected if someone says that isn't a common but not lately very common use of that term that actually fits the definition, but I don't think so.
Yeah, it kind of caught me off guard. I didn't think it made sense. Yeah.
I don't want to dwell on it. But got pointed out, like ask a couple people, Cody, if you're going to use a word like, does this make sense? Is this a good word to use? And if they tell you yes, and then it's wrong, don't trust them and ask other people instead. All right. Where do you think the Cody story arc is going? Rich Fan on Everything This Week, our VIP podcast, talked to me about that. Everything happening right now is he thinks it's possibly building up Cody's frustrations that his way isn't working and he's got to try a new way, and it's part of building him up towards a heel turn. I think he said it more artfully than I did in my recap there. But in general, where do you think things are going, and are some setbacks in crowd reactions that maybe are sort of meant to look like he's being booed as sort of a circumstantial context, but in reality, it's getting us used to him being booed so that when he turns, we kind of see why, because it's like he was being a good guy and the crowd just wasn't embracing him for being true to himself. Plus, he was a good sport and was trying to absorb loss as well, but he just got frustrated with it over time.
Yeah, I think you can see that developing with him, not getting a title shot. I mean, the caveat with the contract is I assume that stipulation doesn't matter anymore whenever Drew McIntyre loses the title. So the fact that he can't get a title shot may not be something he can hold on to. But I think that they're setting the seeds for a potential change for him. But I think the question with Cody is, if he's not in the title match, who does he wrestle at WrestleMania? That to me is where I'm not quite sure. But obviously, there's time for them to figure that out. I think there's been a lot of speculation on WrestleMania and plans, but WrestleMania is 3 months away, so there are a lot of different ways for people to go. But I think that for him, he needs to have a clear opponent that people are really he can sink his teeth into. But I don't think he's going to turn heel just yet. But I think that if he wants to, they're setting up the seeds and they're putting a trail that he can.
Yeah. Yep. That's a good way to put it, I think. All right, let's bring Darrell into the conversation here. We've got a couple other segments that we haven't touched on yet that we can get to, but perhaps Darrell will talk about them. Darrell, welcome to the conversation. How's it going?
How you doing, Chris? And how you doing, Wade?
Good.
Hope y'all enjoying y'all night.
Thank you for being a VIP member as always, Darrell.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I want to also say to you, Wade, I hope you're staying safe up there in Minnesota, and I hope you're using this time as a way to, just get away from everything on the outside and then be able to enjoy your moments while you can.
I appreciate it. Yeah, and that is kind of what's happening. I mean, it's obviously a lot of attention is what's going on around us here. It's pretty intense, but hopefully we get through the weekend without anything too crazy happening with all the people who are coming into town to create trouble from the other side. So we'll see. Got a good court ruling earlier today. Hopefully it empowers local authorities to protect the citizens a little bit better than they have felt was in their jurisdiction up until tonight.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Now I want to talk about what y'all was just talking about with the Cody. And I want to add an aspect. I know in the chat I was saying how Drew feels transitional and things like that. What made me feel that way is the show as a whole. I think we're getting like maybe 2 transitional champions, and that's based off of Cody. Cody promo tonight where he called himself out and how he kept looking at the fans when they did boo him, and you could see his mind. He was showing his mind racing and looking and thinking and stuff like that. Like, okay, this is what y'all did. Then he came out and said, I'm your champion. And things like this. It's making me feel like his only match that he can have at Mania is against Sammy, and Sammy only match that he can have at Mania is against Cody, where Sammy looking like he's getting built up to have a historic week. Win Saturday night's main event. Week later, win the Rumble in Saudi. Give them a moment because Saudi has elected him as their guy. And if Cody wins the Rumble, depending on if he continues to get heat, and if that gives him more heat for being the second person to win 3 Rumbles, you can build up the frustration, everything, and don't allow them to touch, because I don't think Sammy nor Cody has touched none so far. So just like you were saying earlier, how they kept Sean and Brent away from each other, you have kept Cody and Sammy away from each other just for this moment right here. And that's something that they can tell. And that's what tonight's show gave me when they didn't use the opportunity to build a show around Drew, and you knew he was going to get a pop like this tonight, coming back first show, being champion and stuff like that. They haven't did something like that in a while, where they didn't give that feeling to that champion like that. What do you guys think?
Chris, there's a lot of possibilities there. Cody against Sammy, with Cody going into the match as a babyface. He wins the Rumble. So let's say Sammy wins a 4-way, beats Drew, becomes champ at the Rumble. Cody wins the Rumble, and they're friends, but they tell a multi-month, because it's quite a ways between the Rumble and WrestleMania. They tell a multi-month storyline of them being friends, but there's tension. Cody turns along the way, turns at the last second, or goes in as a babyface, but then turns heel against the beloved Sammy to win the belt back. You could even try to set up Sammy getting a rematch, having to wait a whole year for a rematch the following year in 2027. I mean, there's a way to map that out and kind of think I could see that happening, and that's a logical opponent for Cody, and it plays into the idea of Cody maybe kind of snapping. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, what do you think? And that's kind of my top talking point coming out of what Terrell said. But he had a few other things there too. Go ahead, Chris.
I think that if Cody were going to turn heel, that would be a great opponent for him to turn heel against Sami Zayn. And I think you would have a good storyline of him maybe getting frustrated during the build-up or perhaps in the match. In my mind, if that were to occur, it would probably make more sense if it happened during the match as opposed to before. Because in his character's sake, he's getting a title shot. I don't know what Sammy would do that would upset him to make him turn heel on the road to WrestleMania. But yeah, I think if you were going to turn Cody heel, probably the dream opponent for him to turn, or the best opponent for him to turn heel against, would be Sami Zayn.
Sadler says Sammy doesn't feel as hot as he did 2 to 3 years ago for this potential feud to work. Goodfellas says, interesting take, Cody against Sammy. I like Darrell, but I don't know if I love that matchup as a fan. Is Sammy a big enough, is he hot enough, so to speak, right now, with the booking that you would project they would be executing with him over the next couple months, where it'd feel like, yeah, he probably isn't headlining night 2, but I could see him in night 1 defending the main WWE title against Cody with the intrigue of will Cody stay face during it. Is Sammy hot enough where it's worth doing that with, obviously 2 nights and a lot of other men's and women's and special attraction matches in the mix?
Yeah, I think so. I think he's one of the more popular wrestlers in WWE, and I think in the right scenario, I think he wouldn't be a long-term champion. It's kind of similar in a lot of ways to Jey Uso, where people would be so happy seeing him win the title and get a couple defenses. They'd be fine to see him defend it at WrestleMania, even if he lost it there.
Yeah. All right. Goodfellas says Sammy can heat up anytime, and him facing Cody is cool. So he's warming up to it a little bit. Jerome, what else for us?
I would say this one thing people don't take into consideration is crowd pops and things like that. You get 2 weekends in a row of Sammy at home getting a robust crowd pop of him winning. If he wins, yes. Yeah. Then you get another pop of him winning in Saudi Arabia, because I think out of anybody who will be on that show, he will be the most over person, and him winning and them showing the crowd will show a lot of people a lot of things, and crowds like to copy each other. And once you see that will get him heat up, and you just have to keep the booking to heat him up. But
absolutely. That's really good points. Yeah.
But outside of that, I was looking at the women, and I don't know if they're gonna have a match or anything. I like that they brought Jordan Grace up and things like that. I feel like she's a good first challenge for Jade, maybe even a couple of show challenge, maybe Rumble, then Elimination Chamber. But I want to see how they mesh them two, Jade and Jordan, power versus power, Hope versus Superman, or something like that. You know what I'm saying? So I want to see how they do it. Yes. And I couldn't believe how short Jordan Grace were, because when she was on TNA, she was so bigger than most people there. She seemed like she was taller than what she really was until she came to NXT, and you were like, wow, she really short. But I want to see. I hope this doesn't lower Jordan Grace, but they don't right now. They don't have any women that they bringing in. That's the only down part to SmackDown right now, is that they don't have enough robust women.
Chris, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen Jordan Grace wrestle live, so I knew she wasn't as tall as some other wrestlers. But agreeing with Darrell again, she has a great look and is really honed her skills in TNA before coming to NXT. I like the fact, to me, similar to the men, that someone comes in and their goal is to win the #1 title and not anything else. Like, why else would you be there? They're not trying to be the main champion. It makes a lot of sense, and I think that you could have. I think she could have a match with Jade or a feud for a couple months, like Darrell mentioned, but I think they'd also have to establish her character afterwards. You know, if she didn't win the title, then you have to kind of establish her more of why she's there, because she didn't achieve her initial goal.
Yeah. I mean, I think I like the idea of bringing somebody in, and like you say, I want the world title. It signals to the fans this is someone to take seriously. They don't have time to define her down, have her take controversial losses with, shenanigan finishes and that kind of thing. Just let her come in and stand up to the champ. She's an undersized babyface, but powerful and believable against Jade. It feels fresh. I'm good for it. And then, I mean, there's, you got Bianca and Tiffany, and I mean, there's enough. Charlotte and Alexa not being singles. Nia Jax doesn't have to be in a tag team forever. Julia's, going to mainly be a singles wrestler. I don't know. I think there's enough out there to mix and match and have enough going on from SmackDown's contribution to WrestleMania season that it'll be fine, Darrell.
I got you. And also tonight, how much could TNA have used Leon Slater last night wrestling and doing something on the show than what he did? And how much thankful is Leon Slater for not being on that show and being on SmackDown tonight in front of a semi-home crowd per se and things like that? And also with Ilya, then Carmelo, now what he's doing with the U.S. title open challenge. These two have set the bar for the U.S. title and how it's making these guys stars. Because I said earlier, Ilya probably one of few people who's getting over every time he wrestles, even without the U.S. title. And now Carmelo is looking more and more like a star and building himself up by using this title and wrestling week by week. How do you see this? And can we finally get one of these matches on a pay-per-view so it can cement one of these guys as a star instead of, always on the week-to-week show, which is helping out these shows as well?
Well, one thing you don't want to do is like have Matt Cardona be the next U.S. champion and have to follow in the footsteps of Ilya and Carmelo and Sammy. The bar is raised high. This was another really good night for the U.S. title open challenge. Yeah, Leon Slater would have been very helpful on Impact last night. I don't know if he didn't have the visa issue and he made it to Impact. I don't know that I guess he just wouldn't have been the surprise opponent tonight, or did WWE covertly plan this? I haven't had a chance to think that through or check on it. Chris?
Yeah, I was very skeptical of the report that he was going to be the on this match because TNA does have a pay-per-view tomorrow in Texas, and he was scheduled to wrestle against Moose and Cedric Alexander, defending the exhibition title. So I thought there's no way he could be in England on Friday and Dallas on Saturday. And there were visa issues. He was scheduled to wrestle Myron Reed of the Rascals on Thursday at the Impact show, but the Rascals went to AEW, so that didn't happen. Yeah. But I mean, for him, he's someone who's he's 21 years old. He's a very talented wrestler, someone who TNA brought along in their system for a while, and then kind of gave him a push to be the youngest exhibition champion. I mean, for his career, being on WWE's radar, it seems to be pretty good. It worked for Jordan Grace, we talked about before. It worked for Joe Hendry. You could maybe see him in WWE by the end of the year or early 2027. So for him, he looks to be in good stead, and him and Carmelo had a really good match and got the crowd into it, which I thought was really good. And I think both of them have a very bright future.
Darrell, anything else quick? I'm trying to keep these around 90 minutes with this 3-hour SmackDown format so we don't go too late on Fridays. Anything else you want to sneak in here?
Last thing would be about the 3-hour SmackDown. Before, later on in 2025, SmackDown was dull when it went back to 2 hours. Now it seems like it's getting back its flow again, like it was before when it was leading the way, and we was getting the best storylines when it was 3 hours before. Do you think they have found a groove with the 3 hours, and should they just tell USA, hey, let's just keep the 3 hours since y'all want us to have it anyway? Let's just keep it because it seemed like it's working with them, and they haven't even added back the tag teams yet. So I want to see what they do when they add that back.
They had a lot of years of practice with Raw. I don't know. I mean, I don't want to vote for it, but I get what you're saying. There's something about having that space to let things breathe, to feature new names. They've added depth to the roster, so now, in theory, because it's 3 hours, they're going to have more talent on that roster available to keep things fresh. So you end up, by definition, having a wider range of wrestlers getting featured. There are some positives to it. Mr. Freshman in the chat says, 3 hours is too long. I started to doze off when the main event started. It's hard to doze off during that match, but 3 hours is long. But he stayed up for the post show, so we kept him awake. T. Chanzo Sports says the first 3 hour SmackDowns have been good. The first two of them. I think they need to add more promo segments eventually, but a decent start so far. Chris, your thoughts on Darrell's framing of this?
I agree with Darrell in principle, but let's revisit this in not after WrestleMania season in May, or if we still all agree on that.
Yep, absolutely. All right, Darrell, thanks. Good topics.
All right, y'all. Have a blessed night.
Yeah, thanks.
Well.
Appreciate it. Have a good weekend. Anything else from SmackDown, Chris, you want to bring up? Not sure what we didn't get to. I mean, Chelsea Green lost. That sort of is part of the discussion I guess we just had. The women's tag match, Alexa and Charlotte, Alexa going, were you really sick? I could have used you. Charlotte's like, well, just delay the title match. I was really sick and I was throwing up. TMI. I don't know. Yeah. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I just, they set up a tag match. They did have an awkward interaction of, Julia trying to fight Lash Legend and Nia Jax, who's the heel, who's the baby face, but they're having a triple threat match. So, and I don't know if the Charlotte Alexa Bliss interaction is going to lead to them breaking up during that match. But yeah, I think that that was that has some good things to look forward to next week, and then as well as the seem to be ongoing Nakamura Tama Tonga conversation. Partially in Japanese, but
yes.
Yeah.
And unlike on Heated Rivalry, the closed captions don't tell you what's being said.
Yeah.
So we didn't get that. Man, Heated Rivalry was really good too. That was after the first couple episodes, I wasn't sure. I mean, it was good, but it was the fifth episode was one of the best episodes of television I've ever seen in every way, and it ended great. And I think just 6 episodes, so another high recommendation there. Seriously, like episode 5 of Heated Rivalry is already on some list as one of the 10 greatest episodes of any TV show ever. And I was like, yeah, right. After watching the first couple, and they pulled it off. Just because there's Russian guy who was translated. That's what got me to think about that and the mentions of traders earlier. Have you seen His and Hers, by the way?
I've not. No.
I've heard mostly good things. Oh my God, you got to watch. And then some people were killing the buzz by going, and then having some specific critiques that I kind of looked away from because I didn't want. It's like if I'm gonna like download an audiobook, I don't want to read the negative reviews and have people like spoil or talk about it bad. If it's mostly positive reviews, I want to give it a chance.
I've had this things for a long time. It started actually when I was going to a lot of shows with my wife when we were in New York with theater, where I would not read a review of a show before I watched it to the point that I went to some shows and I actually wasn't sure what it was about because I knew basically nothing about the show. I just wanted to watch it and absorb it for what it was. So
I like
try
that.
To read a lot of reviews, or even when it comes to wrestling, if I'm being on a show to talk about a podcast, I try not to hear what anyone else says, or so I can formulate my own opinion.
I've not finished Task yet, but so far so good. Yeah. Anyway, it's nice to have some good TV out there to escape to. What was I going to bring up about the actually wrestling side of things? You're talking about Shinsuke. I didn't have anything to say about that. The women's tag. It wasn't a big deal, whatever it was. So anyway, yeah. All right, cool. Well, we'll wrap up there. Everyone. Go ahead.
I didn't do it at the beginning. Real quick, I'll plug Wrestling Coast to Coast,
Yes.
Pro Wrestling Torch.
Yep.
Daily Cast, I co-host with my very good friend, Justin McClellan. We talk about independent wrestling every week. Our show this week, Memphis Wrestling, show available on YouTube. And a show we're talking about next week, it took place tonight, Limitless Wrestling out of Maine, that actually has an AEW title defense on the show. MJF defending the title against Alec Price. I think this is the first AEW title match that was defended on an independent show. So very interesting. And Justin and I will talk about in depth that show and a lot of news around independent wrestling every Wednesday night once the kids go to bed for me on the PWTorch Daily Cast.
Awesome. Also, if you missed it when I said it earlier, my review, my post show on Impact from last night with Joshua White as my co-host is available on the PWTorch Daily Cast feed. So check that out if you haven't yet. It's format just like our Raw, Dynamite, and SmackDown post shows, but it just because we didn't have space on the daily schedule to put it anywhere but on the Daily Cast, so we moved it to there. So it's kind of like PWT Talks NXT on Tuesdays. We had our Thursday night Impact review. It's a one-off for now. Hopefully we'll continue with Impact coverage. I don't know if we'll be able to fit me doing an hour and a half to 2 hours, a fourth night of the week. And with the quality of the Impact show, I don't know if people are going to be back for it. But we had fun talking about it, and I encourage you to check it out. So search PWTorch on your podcast app to subscribe to that. We have some... Real Legend said, Wrestling Coast to Coast, good listen every week. There we go. Goodfella says, one more week of the Impact post show. Run it back. We'll see. Had to reschedule the fixed recording to make it work. So there's some logistical issues in addition to just me burning out. But it was fun. I really enjoyed doing that last night, and I'm glad I did. And we had great, people showed up. Same numbers as our usual post shows that have been established for, going on 2 years now. So that was encouraging too. Rude Dog said, I've never heard of any of these shows, Wade. He hadn't heard of Task, he hadn't heard of Heated Rivalry. What world are you, or his and hers? What world are you living in? Rude Dog, check out Heated Rivalry. Don't read a lot about it. Just check it out. You genuinely will like it. And episode 5, oh my God. Seriously, you got to make it through the first 4 no matter what. And not that you wouldn't, but it's worth the payoff. It was amazing. All right. I'm seeing if anybody else has any final thoughts here. Real Legend says, I'll be here if you do an Impact post show next week. All right, good. Well, I'll have more on it next week. So stay tuned. It'll be obviously announced one way or the other if we do that. And maybe Powder River Beat says maybe TNA Creative listened to your show and made some improvements. I think they're getting bombarded with suggestions on how to be better, and I think almost anybody would have good ideas because it would be hard to make it worse than some of the choices that they made. Very good. All right, Chris, thanks so much again. I always really enjoy talking wrestling with you here on these post shows.
Oh, thanks for having me as always. Everybody have a good night.
Yep. PWTorch.com/go-VIP is how you become a VIP member. Support what we do. We are a legitimate, independently owned small business. There's no corporate interest here. We've had 4 generations in my family contribute to the Torch in various ways on mailing days and behind the scenes in different ways. It is a true family business, and please check it out. Go VIP, PWTorch.com/go-VIP. Almost 4 decades of archives, new VIP content every day. It is compatible with Apple Podcasts, the native podcast app. You get an email, you click it, boom, you're in. All the shows then are there with no commercial breaks, so a nice streamlined listening experience on our free shows, and then a bunch of VIP exclusives that you are missing out on. And you can further customize your podcast feed so they're not all on one feed, and you can divide it into current events and retro shows or specific themes or specific shows. So you can fill up your podcast app, Apple Podcasts or any iOS or Android app out there, with a bunch of feeds for different shows and listen to what you're in the mood for when you have time, plus a lot of written content that is also VIP exclusive every week. You can also get a free trial on Patreon to get just the audio portion of things, along with some of the newsletter back issue stuff with the top tier there. Full details on a 7-day free trial at Patreon at patreon.com/PWTorchVIP. Patreon.com/PWTorchVIP. If you're part of the Patreon ecosystem, that's a really nice way to go. Just see what you think after 7 days, and no risk at all to see what it's like to have the commercial-free versions of these shows, along with, if you choose to purchase a tier that unlocks everything. All right, that'll do it. Thanks, everybody. Have a nice, safe weekend, and we'll talk to all of you next time. As always, thanks so much to the chat for your contributions throughout the show.